dogs and help them to help their dogs live more happily and harmoniously with human beings. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about the fundamentals of what we should do with every dog we have, be it a puppy, or be it a rescue dog. So there are certain things we need to do, and just above me on the screen there, you can see the things we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about socialization. That's giving the dog every experience it can possibly have during its living and life with us. Deference is teaching the dog to look to us for leadership and guidance, if you like. And we'll also talk a little bit about how we can teach our dogs to be calm. That's quite a big subject and probably a bit too much to go into too much depth, but I'll touch on it for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about the basics. I'm not interested in teaching dogs to do tricks, jump through hoops, walk on tight ropes, give you its paw, roll over and play dead. I just want it to have the basic training to make it easier for you to handle and for easier. We'll talk a little bit about lead walking. Again, not interested in having them strapped to my side. I want them to walk comfortably on the lead without pulling my arm off. And recall, I pull out recall by itself because it's probably, in my view, one of the most important things to teach a dog. If your dog doesn't come back when you call it, you can either lose your dog, it can be run into the road, it can get in all sorts of bother, it can bother other people, etc. So recall, I'll cover that a little bit. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about manners. And that's things like jumping up, running up to people, chasing other dogs, getting in the face and annoying other dogs, chasing runners, cyclists, barking, all those sorts of things, all the sorts of things that many dogs do, and many owners are not really sure what to do about it or why indeed they do it. So, excuse me, I'm having my tea as we go along. I apologise for my appearance. It's about 35 degrees out here in sunny Norfolk in the UK. So it's very hot, very sweaty. So I'm dressed down slightly. In fact, when I've done this, I'll be going out in the paddling pool with Ziggy, my dog, to cool down even more. So, socialization. Socialization is something we should do with dogs from a very early age. In fact, when dogs are puppies, they have quite a critical period actually, where they should experience pretty much everything they're going to experience in life, and it should be done in a structured manner and built up. And that period runs from about 3 weeks up to about 14 weeks. Now, during that period, you have to have a structured method in place to enable the dog to build up the knowledge and the responses to the world it will find itself living in, the human world. So as they build up this experience during their puppy period, they'll need to have seen big people, little people, larger people, thinner people, children, noisy people, crowds. You get the picture. So pretty much everything they might come across, so they really need to see it during this period. They need to be exposed to noises, cars, hoovers, equipment in the kitchen, lawnmowers, anything, any sort of noise that they're likely to hear on a routine basis during their lives. The sooner they're exposed to it, the better they'll handle it in later life. So you build this up over a period of time. And in fact, I'm just going to put in the chat window here a little link for you all. Okay, now that is a little PDF that's on my website you can download, and it's a puppy program. It gives you the whole routine to do over the puppy period. So by the time the puppy gets to you, and the puppy maybe will come to you at about week 6 or so, no sooner than that, 6 to 8, it'll come to you, and then you continue with its socialization. Man of the Kennel Club, but it's a very good document, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so that's socialization for puppies. Now, the thing about socialization and pretty much everything related to behavior or training with dogs, it's something you can't tick off. So you can't have your spreadsheet and say, well, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. It doesn't work like that. So the puppy's socialization should carry on into its adult life. So you should continually socialize that puppy throughout its whole life. As an adult dog, you continue to socialize it. So it gets to see and do all of the things that the world presents to it in a repeated and fairly controlled manner, really. That way you'll end up with a very balanced dog. Now, a lot of the dogs I encounter that are rescues, they often have various issues. They're frightened of cars, they're frightened of hoovers, they're terrified of being left alone, they're frightened of strangers, and the stranger might be another dog, another person, a child, or a car, or anything really. And the reason they have those sorts of problems is because during their really informative time as a puppy, they've not been exposed to it. So they might have been in a puppy farm, they might have been in a family that didn't care for the dog too much, and they've not been exposed to what they should have been. So they build up problems, and often the problems really come down to fear, and the fear can then be shown in aggressive responses to certain things. So socialization is extremely important. I can't overemphasize how important it is. And it's something that is often not done very well. And the net result, you end up with a dog that potentially has problems and it needn't have problems. And then you end up having to call somebody like me who will come and try and help you understand why they've got the problems and to put a program in to adjust them for those problems to help them get over it. Okay, so that's socialization. Now, the next one is something called deference. Now, deference, you should do this with every dog, right from puppies. Right, as soon as they come through your door, you should be doing this. Now, deference is basically getting the dog to sit. Sounds very simple. And the dog sits for everything. And it does this throughout its whole life. The same with all of these training tips I'm going to give you and these ways of doing things. Throughout the whole life, you should be doing this. The point of deference is the dog sits when it needs something. So if it needs to go out into the garden to relieve itself, it sits. If it wants to come up on the sofa, and I'm not averse to that, it sits. If it's going to have a play with you, it sits. If it's going to go for a walk and you have to put its lead and its harness on, it sits. As you're going to open the door to go out for said walk, it sits. You get the picture. So basically the dog is earning everything it gets throughout its life. So it becomes, dependent's not the right word. It looks to you for what it wants, and it's rewarded for it. So I'm not talking about making your dog sit for 10 minutes. We're not trying to dominate our dog. We're just trying to get your dog used to, I do this and this happens. And they become much more balanced by doing this. So they sit, the bum touches the ground, and then they get the response, which might be play. It might be a little treat when you first start doing this. It might be letting them out. It might be getting them up for a cuddle. You get the picture. So you reward them as a response to doing what you want them to do, which is sitting. Okay. So that's good. Okay, so The next thing we're going to talk about is sitting, staying, and coming. Right. So sitting, we've mentioned that. The way to do it's a fairly simple process. Sitting. I use treats when I'm training a dog, and it's a useful way of doing it. So you give the dog a treat when it's done what you want. So the idea is you have a little treat in your hand, close to it so it can't see it, and you literally just walk towards the dog and ask it to sit. We're not dominating it, we're not frightening it, we ask it to sit. And just move your hand over the dog's head and ask it to sit. And the dog tends to look up, and before we know it, the dog's sat its bum down. Does it by natural progression, it works. What you don't do is you don't forcibly shove the dog down on its rump and force it down. We're not going to do anything forceful with any of these dogs. That's how we're going to train them. Okay, so if it's a puppy and the puppy won't sit, again, you gently walk forwards and you back the puppy up very gently, and the puppy may maybe back up to you. Don't frighten it, and you just tell it to sit calmly, and the puppy will again naturally sit. Give it a treat, reward, thank you very much, done. And once you've got the dog to sit like that, we then need to teach it to stay. Now, a simple command, I learned this from my father-in-law, who was a Met Police dog handler. A simple command to stay is literally have your hand up, push it towards the dog like that, and just say stay. Fairly firmly, stay. And the dog's already sitting down. Never confuse more than one command, okay? So don't say sit, stay, or stay, come, or whatever. Use one command, okay? So you tell it to stay, and the dog's sitting down. And then just take a little step back. Just stand there for a second or two. Go back to the dog, and as long as the dog stayed sitting down, reward the dog. You release the dog from the stay, and then you repeat. And next time, just go a little bit further back. Okay. Go back to the dog. Give the dog a treat again. Tell it what a good dog it is. Release it from the stay. You never release a dog from a stay when you're distant from them. That confuses them. So you always go to the dog and allow them to get up after you release them. Give them a treat. Done. You'll eventually get to a point where you can have the dog sit, and then you can walk around the dog. You can step over the dog once you've got it to lie down. Similar thought process. So once you've got the dog sitting, to get it to lie down, little treat hidden in the hand, and just bring the hand down in front of the dog to the ground. And at the same time, just go down, down, and the dog will go down. Immediately treat. When you treat a dog, you must immediately reward them. Okay, give them reward immediately. Okay, don't make them wait. They've earned it. You reward them, and eventually the rewards will become intermittent. So you'll occasionally reward them with a treat. Another time you'll reward them with just a little tickle of the ears, a little cuddle, tell them what a good dog they are, or just verbal praise. Another time you'll reward them maybe with a ball and have a little game with them. Okay, so you'll mix it up. Okay, so that's stay. And comes a very simple thing again. The dog's already sitting. Just step back a pace or two and use the word command. And just come, and I tend to just bring my arm up like that. So I'll say, come. The dog comes, you give it a treat, and okay, a lot of people like the dog to come around, walk around their back and say, I'm not bothered. As long as they come, that's what I'm looking for them to do. So I give them reward. If when I've been stepping back and they're sitting and they come to me without my command, I will gently just walk them back to where they were. I will sit them back down again, tell them to stay, step back and repeat. And eventually you'll get that over a fair distance. Okay, so we're actually starting a little bit of the recall here. So we'll have them coming over a little bit of a distance. That's fine. Okay, so that's sit, stay and come in a very, very small nutshell. There's plenty of books that go in depth into that, but that is basically the fundamentals of it. It's not hot rocket science, guys. It's fairly straightforward stuff. Okay, before I talk about recall, let me just talk a little bit about periods of training. I see a lot of people. I've seen gun dog trainers out in the fields, and they keep the dog going for ages and ages. Keep throwing the stuff in the water. The dog comes back, back. Never praise the dog. Never give the dog a break to play or relax. It's constant. If you think about when you were at school and you sat in the class and you've got double maths or something, and it's I don't know, very difficult to keep concentration during that time. So it's the same with dogs. We don't keep training them for hours on end. The maximum time you should be training your pet dog at home, 5 to 10 minutes. Sessions of about 5 to 10 minutes, no more than during the day, but always remember to keep them really short, really focused, and always reward the dog at the end with a play session so it enjoys itself. Okay, and they'll look forward to it. If you make training fun for a dog, trust me, they will be always open to it. They'll enjoy it. Now, the other thing about training is the best time to train a dog, again, this may seem blindingly obvious, but the best time to train a dog is when that dog has been exercised. So take it out for a good old long walk, get it a little bit tired, and then do some training with it. Okay, it will be open to it, and it'll have lost a bit of its fizz, and it'll be more focused on what you're trying to achieve with it. Okay, if it's really uptight and I want to get out in the water, I want to go swimming, you've got to do all that stuff first. Otherwise, it's going to be not impossible, but it's going to be a lot harder to train them if you don't deal with some of that. There's lots of stuff on the internet you can read, lots of books. The last thing I want to say about treats are quite interesting. Some people worry about treats. It's why my dog's going to get fat and I shouldn't be doing that. No, if you're training a dog for the first time and you're using treats, which I recommend, you get much quicker results usually. But again, not all dogs are driven by that. They might be driven by other things, their toys, whatever. But the treat should not be used as a bribe. It should be used as a reward. Okay. Now, a reward is the dog gets something after it's done it. It's not getting it because you're holding. The current vernacular these days, you will see people on YouTube and they're training a dog to walk on the lead. The way they're doing it, they've got a treat, the dog can see the treat, and they're holding the treat in front of the dog's nose, right in front of the dog's nose like that, and walking along with it. And the dog, of course, is walking to the lead, and it's lovely because it's got a treat shoved under its nose. Now, the trick is getting that dog to do that without a treat shoved under its nose. Okay, so the reward should be hidden in your hand, little tiny rewards hidden in your hand, and should be offered as soon as the dog's done what you want it to do. So as soon as it sits down, it gets a treat. As soon as it comes back to you, it gets a treat. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. Okay, so with the treats, just feed the dog some less. Again, it's not rocket science. If you're going to be using treats, just reduce what you're feeding your dog a little to compensate for the extra bits and pieces you're giving the dog. And when you're struggling a little bit, find something that the dog really likes and the dog doesn't really get much of. Okay, so a bit of roast chicken, little bits of really strong cheddar cheese, and they love stuff like that. Most dogs love that, and that's a special thing for them, and they're much more likely to want to please you to get that reward. And the last thing about rewards, occasionally give the dog what they call a jackpot. Now, jackpot, instead of one little bit, it's 3 or 4 little bits. It's a little handful of them. Okay, so once they've been doing quite well, give a little handful, and they'll think, my goodness, that's fantastic. I'm not quite sure what I did there, but I'm going to do it again. Okay, so that's stay, come, and sit, and using treats. Now lead walking. Now lead walking's again quite an interesting area. A lot of people struggle with this. Often you'll go out and I'll see dogs taking owners for walks, not the other way around. So the dog is at the end of the lead and the owner's doing this. That's, and it's all over the place. 9 times out of 10, these dogs will probably be on extending leads, which I hate extending leads. If we could get them removed from all pet shops or whatever, that would be fantastic. Most people, when you talk to them and they've got an extending lead, they'll say, oh, well, my dog's got very bad recall, and so I don't let him off the lead, which is criminal in my view. So I don't let him off the lead. And this way, of course, he gets to exercise and he gets to sniff things and whatever. But the dog, trust me, is not under any control whatsoever. It's on the end of a 20-foot extending lead and it's going all over the place. They're not in control. And not only that, these extending leads, because they're fine nylon usually, they'll often wrap round. They have the potential to do damage to other dogs, other people, etc. So I don't like them. I look at it very simply. You have the dog on a proper lead, i.e. a short lead, fairly short lead, or it's off running free. Nothing in the middle. The extending stuff, I just wish we'd do away with it. Like all things, there are probably a few minor exceptions. If you've got a dog that is blind or is really old and is now deaf and is a bit confused, and it's not safe to have them off the lead, then and only then might I think about having an extending lead or indeed a long lead. So a long lead, that's a long lead. This old big thing here. This is about 40-foot long lead that I use for big dogs. I'll talk a little about long leads in a minute. Okay, so it's either a normal short lead or no lead at all. So how do we train the dog not to pull on a lead? And I'd hold it there as well, then the dog would be attached there. And they'd walk quite tightly to my side within a foot or so. And I would turn, the dog would turn and all that sort of stuff. Not be dragging me. If the dog's in front of me and it's moving forwards, sideways like that, so it's sniffing and it's meeting other dogs and that sort of stuff, that's fine. I'm happy with that. But what I'm not happy with is if the dog pulls. Don't want that at all. So you'll find people use all sorts of various bits and pieces. One of the favourites of a lot of trainers is a halty. So a halty, basically, you've seen them like that. Okay, so you've got a strap over the dog's nose. And the way that works is when the walker pulls on the lead, it pulls down on their nose like that. That's uncomfortable and if not painful at times for dogs. Not only that, how many times have you seen dogs with these damn things up like this and they're being rushed and they're going pushed up into their eyes? Horrible things. Never use them, in my humble opinion. Don't use them. What I'm holding in my hand here is what I use. Now this is a police dog training lead. Let me just quickly show it you. There's the top. A couple of little hooks here. We take it all the way through. There it is. There it is. And there's the end of it. Okay? That's a police dog training lead. That's about, I should think, that's about 8 foot long. And it has various places where you can change it. So for instance, if I wanted to use this just as a normal average length lead, I would bring this down like that, clip that on there. I've now got a lead probably about 6 foot long, 4.5 foot to 6 foot long, ample for walking most dogs. Now, when I'm training, when I'm training a dog to walk on the lead for the first time and not pull on the lead, the police dog training lead has its first. It's got a little one here that you can use to make it even shorter, but then it's got a second one here, second loop, and I pull it like that. So I've now got a loop like that, and that's where my hand goes, like that. Okay. I'll only quickly go. You'll probably forget this, but I'll quickly tell you. So when you're attaching your dog to this end, we're going to use this as a braking system. So we're going to have 2 loops with this thing. So the first one is going to go across my middle finger like that. Okay. And I'm going to hold it, sorry, like that. So I've got the little I've got the finger there, that's my middle finger, so it's coming over there and it's over there. And I'm going to have, let me just pull this down, a fairly large loop hanging down. Okay. And then at the top, I'm going to have this little loop that's pinched between my thumb and finger, like so. Okay. Like that. That's all right. That's my dog. Okay. And on the other end, I'm going to have my dog. So I'm going to then relax, and I'm going to let the dog be attached. Now, as long as the dog is not pulling on the lead like this, we're fine. We haven't got a problem. But as soon as the dog pulls and it's tight, like that, so it's like that, now I'm going to take some action. So as soon as the dog pulls like that, I'm going to let this little loop go, like so. And I'm going to issue the command, heel, or whatever I'm going to use. And at the same time, I'm going to let the big loop go, which is up here. And the big loop I'm going to let go, and I'm going to grab hold of the lead like that. And I'm going to lock it into my stomach. And I'm going to just turn away from where the dog's pulling. So I'll turn away, the dog's at that end. Now when the dog gets to the end of the lead, there's only one thing it can do. It's a little bit like a boat at a mooring. It has to swing round, and it swings round towards you. So as it spins round, you call the dog to you enthusiastically. The dog will come, get it to sit. You reward the dog because it's been a really good dog. And you reset your lead, and you do exactly the same again. Okay, and you repeat that ad nauseum every time. So the idea is the little loop's the key thing. Okay, the little loop's the key thing. The little loop acts as a signal to your dog. So as soon as you let the little loop go, it knows that when you issue the command, so the little loop goes and you say heel or whatever command you're going to use, it knows that it's going to get a little tiny bit more slack, and then it's going to come to a grinding halt. Now, at no time are we pulling on this lead. We're not yanking the dog back. The dog is actually coming to a stop under its own inertia. Okay, and I'd use a harness when I'm doing this. I'd not use a collar. I prefer to use a harness. It works on a collar, but a harness is probably better. So it comes and it swings around, comes back to you. You tell it what a good dog it is. You reward it. You sit it, and you will find some dogs do this a lot quicker than others. You will find that most dogs quite quickly get to understand that the first loop in the command means they're going to come to a grinding halt. So they naturally just step back, ease off the lead, so the lead becomes relaxed, and they know that they're going to be able to then continue on their way, but not be pulled back. As I say, we're not pulling them back, but it feels to them as though they're being pulled back. And that's training your dog to lead walk. It's really as simple as, if that's what you do, you keep doing it, and you will find most dogs will quite quickly get to understand that and get to know that. And you won't need the police dog lead. It's basically a training lead, the police dog lead. You'll be able to replace that with just a conventional lead, where you'll just be able to just have a gentle little tug on it, a gentle little, no more than that, and to say heel, and the dog will come back. Okay, again, it's not difficult. So get out of your mind the joys of extendable leads. Get a proper lead, dog training lead first of all, and get them trained. And trust me, you'll have a happy bunny on your hands. Okay, so that's that. So recall. Why do I pull recall out by itself? Well, recall is really important. If you're going to be taking your dog out for fairly long walks, say in big parks or wooded areas or the beach or any big open spaces, the malls, anywhere like that, you want to be comfortable that your dog is going to come back appropriately when you want it to. Recall. Now, a lot of people just either don't do it, or they stick them on the extending lead because it's too difficult. the amount of people that have said to me, "Oh, I've tried." In the park, of course, there's distractions, there's people, there's dogs, there's cats, there's all sorts of things. So we have to teach the dog recall wherever you're going to walk it. You have to repeat your training in different locations. So you do your recall training at home, in the garden. You do your recall training when you're indoors and the dog's in the garden. You call it in. That's a bit more fun for it. When you take it to the park, and it's say an enclosed park, you repeat the same training there. If you take it to the beach, you repeat the same training there. If you take it for a trip in the woods, you repeat the same training there. It's called generalization. Okay, so we're generalizing a dog's behavior so it repeats it wherever it is. Okay, and once again, you have to remember, if you're going to do that, you must remember to do it throughout its whole life. So once you've got your dog really trained and really good with a recall, every now and again when you're out walking, you repeat it. So you're out in the woods, the dog's having a lovely time, it's running around, it's having fun. Every now and again, you recall the dog. Tell it what a good dog it is, give it a verbal reward or however you want to do it, and let it go again. Okay, and it becomes a normal thing for them then. Now, you've got to understand that dogs are like us. They're not perfect, and they're going to get it wrong sometimes. As soon as the dog finally comes back, we're going to be very positive with the dog. We're not going to be angry, although inside we might be seething. We're going to be calm and relaxed and to tell the dog what a fantastic dog. Even though you've spent an hour looking for it, you've got to make it know that actually this is not a problem. I'm wonderful. I'll come back eventually. Okay, so here's how to do recall. Very, very basically, very, very quickly. You have to get a dog to recall to, first of all, your voice. Secondly, to a visible command. And thirdly, to a whistle. The whistle's for long distance and when it's out of sight a little bit. Okay. The visible signal is again when they're a little bit farther away. So how do we do it? Dead easy. It's better with two people. You can do it with one, but it's much better with two people. So imagine this. You've got two people. They're about they're a huge distance apart, so they're about 3 or 4 foot apart. One of them's got the dog sitting down. So the one here's got the dog. This is the other person. This person calls the dog. This huge distance. The dog comes to this person, sits down, and gets a reward. This person now takes a step backwards. To the person that's taken a step back, the dog sits. The other person's now taken a step back, and very quickly you get quite a big gap between you and the dog is coming backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Again, don't do it for long periods, backwards and forwards. So do that in the garden. Now, when you've got it to the extent of your garden, now you're going to use a signal. Okay, it's called chaining in technical terms. It doesn't really matter. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to call the dog to us again, but as the dog is already coming to us, we'll put another signal in. So I would just use that, like that. So you've called the dog is already coming, you do that as well. Now that changes the events. So the dog will know that when it comes, that's happening as well. That means come as well. So you'll get to the point where the dog can be at a distance and you can do that. The dog can see that and it knows it means come and it'll come. Okay. Now the last thing you want to do is the whistle, and it's exactly the same principle. Okay. Proper dog whistle. This is the same principle. So as the dog is coming from distance, and don't try and do this when you're training a dog and it's running away. You're setting the dog up to fail then. Okay, as it's running away, while you're training it, you are setting it up to fail. So as the dog is coming back to you, you then blow the whistle. Okay, and you do that every time. So it builds up in its mind the links between the two. It knows when it's called, it has to come. It knows when it sees the arm, it has to come. and it knows when it hears the whistle, it has to come. That's pretty much recall in a nutshell. But you have to do it wherever you walk the dog. Okay, so do it in any area where that dog's going to be off the lead. You have to repeat that, and just remember to periodically, when you're out walking and the dog's off lead, to do that. Okay, let me just quickly mention the long lead. Here's the long lead. This is for a big old dog. They're not all this thing. This would be for like an Alsatian or a Rottweiler or something, big old thing. The idea of the long lead, about 30 or 40 foot long, about 40 foot's about the right size. Attach that to the dog and make sure the dog's got a harness. So you're not running the risk of damaging the dog's neck by it yanking at the end of a lead. And the principle behind the long lead is to really kid the dog that it's not really on a lead. So you trail this lead behind it, you just let it relax. You've got hold of one hand, obviously. You just let it relax, and the dog poodles off. And when it gets to the end of the lead, and there's just that slight tension in the lead, you literally, again with the other lead, you just give it a gentle little tug and call the dog. And the idea is, if you've done the short lead training, so you do the short lead training first, this should work. A little gentle tug, tell the dog to come, and again it should turn and it should come to you. And as it's coming to you, make a big fuss. Make a really big fuss. Make yourself look a bit silly. Make a big fuss. And it'll come a bit more enthusiastically. You reward it, and you do that every single time. And if the dog doesn't want to come at the end of the lead, and it's still wanting to keep on going, then you just take a little step to one side, give the lead a little bit of a tug again. I'm not yanking, I never yank it, no need for that. A little tug, a little firm tug, and it'll come. And you practice that, and you practice out with the long lead, and you will get more and more comfortable and more relaxed knowing that your dog's going to be coming back, and it's going to come back safely. Now let me just say a couple of things about breeds of dogs here. My dog, hang on a second, let me just move this a second. There she is, that's Ziggy. Hang on, oh, bear with. Oh, Ziggy, yeah, that's Ziggy. Now Ziggy is a Scottish Deerhound and a English Sheepdog mix. Okay, so the clue's in the title, isn't it, Ziggy? Clue's in the title, isn't it, darling? She likes to chase deer. So the question is, do I stop her chasing the deer? The answer is no, because I know she can't actually catch a deer. Okay, so what do I do? Well, the woods where I walk her, there are muntjacs, and she likes to chase the muntjacs. Now she can't catch them. She's far too slow. If she was a much faster dog, I probably wouldn't let her chase the muntjac. So I let her chase it, and she's doing something she's been bred for centuries to do now, remember? So why should we deny them that? So she's chasing the muntjac. I simply give her a few minutes, and then I wait, I blow the whistle, and she always comes back, and she'll come back quite knackered and very pleased with herself because she's been able to chase the muntjac, but she's been allowed to do what dogs do. Okay, so it's natural behavior. So okay, that's basically the fundamentals. The last one there is manners. When I'm talking about manners, I'm talking about the dog not jumping up at you, other people, visitors. I'm talking about the dog not chasing people, chasing cyclists or runners or anything of that nature, or chasing cars. I'm also talking about having manners with the dog, not getting in the dog's face. I'll give you an example. I was out very early this morning at a doggy swimming area I take Ziggy to in the woods, and she loves to swim, and there were 3 short-haired German pointers, fairly large dogs, beautiful creatures, lovely dogs, but they weren't in control. They ranged from about 6 to 8. They were intact, lively, very enthusiastic, very bouncy, and a bit over the top. Now, they kind of surrounded Ziggy and started getting in her face, and she started to curl her lip. So I stepped in and moved them all away and asked the owner to put them back on the lead, which she did. She was fine. Nothing wrong with the owner at all. But I had to explain to her what we were doing here. it isn't acceptable to allow your dog to get into another dog's face and upset them to the point where the other dog feels it has to do something. So the natural response of a dog is either fight or flight. And if it can't get away, it will curl its lip, getting ready to fight and to bite. And it's wrong for us to turn around and say, well, no, it's okay. That's okay. He needs telling. He needs telling. And if your dog growls at him and snarls at him, that's right. That's telling him. He'll learn. No, no. That dog will not learn anything. But the dog who's having to do the snarling and the telling off will actually be learning to be aggressive towards other dogs. And it'll get to the point where it behaves like that with most dogs it comes across. So we don't allow them to work it out. We step in and we deal with it. So what we were doing with these 3 dogs by putting them on the lead was punishing them. And that's what we're doing. We're punishing the dog. Punishment isn't about hitting at them, shouting them, being aggressive with them. It's taking them out of the picture until they calm down. It's a bit like taking a child out of a playground that's misbehaving. They're relaxed again. They get led off and back into the playground. And if they do the same thing again, you punish them again, put them back on the lead. And if they keep doing it, you get to the point where you sit and they don't get to do it. In fact, you then leave. And again, that dog will learn that, well, if I do that, that happens. And that bit I don't really like. So I won't do this bit. Okay? So that's basically manners. So the teaching the dog manners really comes from the point 2 in the list above me, which is deference and relaxation and socialization, actually. It's exposing them to other dogs, other people, and encouraging them to do the right stuff. We always reward the good behavior, be it praise or with a treat or whatever. We never reward the bad behavior. So, for instance, the dog that jumps up, we don't talk to it, we don't push it down, we don't tell it no, we do nothing. In fact, we turn away and the dog slides off and they sit. And as soon as the dog sits, then it gets a reward. You will quickly get it out of the habit of jumping up at people. But here's the rub, of course. You've got to make sure that when it approaches people like that, and this is quite difficult, of course, you have to say to people, just turn away and it's fine. Now, they'll find that quite tricky. One of the ways of practicing is do it with people you know. Do it with people you know. And it only needs a little bit of repetition, and the dog will learn that it has to have doggy manners, if you like, and that will come. But you have to again be consistent and do the same thing over and over again. So that's basically doggy manners. And don't be upset when your dog, for instance, sniffs another dog's bum, because that is actually doggy manners and normal doggy behaviour. They are gathering a huge amount of information from each other's rear ends. I won't go too much into detail, but they're gathering a lot of information. And they'll often sniff the same dog over and over again just to make sure nothing's changed. And indeed, it is the same dog. But again, here's the rub. A lot of dogs love to sniff other dogs' rear ends, but they don't really like having it done to themselves. Right, so on that lovely note, I will finish. Take a look at the download I left for you. You might find that of interest. I've only just started doing this, so I haven't had any real visitors, which I didn't expect to, but I will keep doing this every Wednesday. Eventually I will be doing it with my son, which is a bit more fun because we have a general chit chat. I welcome any of your questions. You can ask them via my website, which is on the screen here, or you can ask them via Twitter. I'm C Behaviourist on the Twitter. I will post this to Facebook. I will also post this to Instagram. And I'm _Canine Behaviourist on Instagram. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you very much when and if you get to look at this. And I will be back again next week, same time, same place. Okay, bye-bye for now.